Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands. And the other day I was at my mum and dad's, I was in the spare room, and I noticed they had a pile of old-fashioned retro horror books, a lot of which I used to read when I was a kid. And I was thinking I'd like to go through them and remind myself what's here, and thought it would probably be quite a cool video because looking through these books, it's a nice trip down memory lane. Some of you guys might have owned these books as well. They've got some really cool covers, and it's just kind of a nice reminder of some older films that I for one, haven't seen for a long time. So I'll go through these and let you know what's here. Now, I've tried several takes in this video to hold the books up, go through the pages, show you some of the images, but it's a bit too tricky with me and my hands. I'm getting in a bit of a mess with the books. So what I'll do is I'll hold the book up, I'll give you a good look at the cover, and I'll just kind of let you know what the book's like and if I enjoyed reading it, and hopefully that's okay. So the first book we have is The House of Horror, The Complete Story of Hammer Films, which seems like a pretty interesting read. It's information on lots and lots of Hammer movies with quite a bit of rhetoric on sort of behind the scenes and how the movies were made, that kind of thing. It's a good mix of text and pictures. It's mainly black and white pictures, but some really good ones of both behind the scenes of the movies and also some quite iconic scenes of monsters and things like that. So yeah, this looks like a pretty interesting read. I might skim through this later on just to refresh and brush up on my Hammer horror knowledge. But yeah, this one is a pretty enjoyable read from what I've seen just going through it again. So yeah, it's The House of Horror. Next up, this may actually be the same book because this is House of Horror, The Complete Story of Hammer Films. So again, it looks like the same kind of thing, the same mix of text and black and white images and information of behind the scenes and how a number of Hammer horror films came together. I think it may have been beefed up a little bit. There's a bit of like a index of Hammer films towards the back. So whether this is like it says there, a new updated edition. So this one's got a bit more information, a bit more of a encyclopedic aspect to it towards the back, and cool cover there of Christopher Lee. I think that's Scars of Dracula, but yeah, awesome whichever movie it is. But yeah, so yeah, interesting read. Next up, this is a nice book. This is another Hammer film, and this is the Bray Studio years, and this is actually signed by Christopher Lee to me and my dad, Stephen Bryn. That's us. We met Christopher Lee on a couple of occasions, and he was an absolutely wonderful gentleman. So he signed this on one of those occasions. So this is a Bray Studio. So I'm imagining that this is probably more earlier Hammer, sort of 50s and 60s. It's very text heavy. There's a few black and white pictures in this, but there's lots and lots of text. So if you are interested in kind of the Bray Studios era of Hammer horror, this appears to have as much information as you'd like. There is a ton of writing and text and rhetoric in this one about behind the scenes and what it was like at Bray Studios. So sure, this is a very interesting read to go through. Yeah, it's a nice book that is, and in really good condition too. Nice to see that again. Next up we have the Illustrated Frankenstein Movie Guide. So this is quick fire short reviews of any kind of movie relating to Frankenstein. It's not just Frankenstein, there's a lot of different horror and exploitation films that they cover in this. But yeah, it's just really short little snippet reviews starting from about the 20s or 30s and going through the decades, and just giving you a little bit of a rundown on all those kind of movies. But this one looks pretty good. I might keep this one out and have a look through it and just read up on some of the movies that are in this. I always find these sort of short review things quite good, because if you want to look up a film, you just get a bit of a feel of what the movie was like and how it was kind of received critically. So yeah, this one's a pretty good one, pretty cool. Next up, I remember this book. So this one I had as a kid, and this used to absolutely terrify me. So this is Man-Eating Sharks, and yeah, this as a kid, this really, really put the fear into me. And as a kid, it was hard to articulate what it was about this book that made me so uncomfortable. But I think what it was is, this came out in about 1975, and I had a lot of shark books as a kid, but this one is written in a more lurid exploitation style. It's very in your face, and it really made me think as a kid I was going to get eaten by a shark, which I guess is effective exploitation. But it wasn't like the kind of the educational National Geographic books that I also had as a kid. Yeah, this one was much more darker, and I'm sure at some point my mum actually took this away because it scared me so much. Looking through it now, it's not anything all that terrifying. It's just quite uses a lot of sensationalism and things like that rather than scientific fact and things. So yeah, I definitely don't do books like this anymore. But yeah, this was interesting to see this one again. So that's that one. Next up we have a big hefty one. This is Horror, the Definitive Guide to the Cinema of Fear. And this is a really good one. This is another one of like these movie guides. It starts from about the 1920s, goes through to the 1990s, and covers lots and lots of different horror films. They get about a paragraph each, where it just talks about them a little bit. Lots of pictures in this one and images, lots of colour pictures as well, which is pretty cool. Big, heavy, hefty book as well. So lots of information to go out, lots of reference points in this one. So again, if you like these kind of short fire review things, this is a good one to have. Cool cover there as well. And next one, speaking of cool covers, this is the Winslow Effect, which is the art and history of Stan Winston Studios. And look at that for a cover. And that's enough to make me buy this book anyway. But this is a really big, heavy, hefty book. Lots and lots of pictures and images in this one. Colour pictures, mainly focusing on the behind the scenes things in Stan Winston Studios. So how they built the creatures, how they made all the mechanics work and things like that. Very, very candid look at the behind the scenes work that goes on in these big special effect blockbuster movies. So if you have an interest in these kind of effects and practical effects and giant animatronics, this book will definitely be of interest to you. It's got lots of written information as well, but like I say, there's tons and tons of colour glossy pictures in this as well, which show you the Stan Winston and his team at work putting things together. So yeah, really cool book. Very nice to go through that one. Next one, this is another book that I vividly remember from my childhood. This is simply called Horror Films by Alan Frank. It's fallen to pieces now because this is from the 1970s, and I remember this being around the house, and I loved going through this book. I was both fascinated but terrified by this one. I would pick it up and very tentatively go through the pages because so many of the images in this absolutely terrified me. Looking through it now, there's nothing that's all that scary. It mainly focuses on sort of Hammer films and anything sort of pre-1970s. But man, there were so many images in this that just used to freak me out and scare me. But I was always strangely drawn to it. So yeah, this is a real artifact of a book for me. Like I say, falling to pieces now, but it's so old and has had so much use from me back as a kid. So yeah, that's a cool one. Right, next up we have a celebration of classics from Universal Studios Monsters, so the old 1930s classic monsters. This is mainly black and white pictures, obviously, of those movies, and it's in different chapters for each each monster. So the Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Wolfman, they all get their own little chapter selection, and it talks about them and the making of the movies and any of the movies that kind of came from them. So yeah, really interesting stuff if you're into that time period in horror. Okay, this book, I don't remember this one, but this is absolutely fantastic. This is a pictorial history of horror movies, which is pretty much what it says on the tin. Lots and lots of pictures in this one, both black and white and colour, with a little bit of text to back them up. But it looks like a really awesome book. I'm wanting to go through this in a bit more detail and check it out. And the back cover, look at that. That is so cool. So yeah, this is a really, really awesome looking book. Very entertaining to read through. I'm not sure when this is from. It looks old. It looks 1970s. I don't know if it's that old, but it definitely looks like a retro book. So yeah, I'll guess it's probably from the 70s. But yeah, this one is really cool. I'm glad to find this one, and I'm going to have a proper look through this a bit later. Then next up we have simply titled Monsters and Horror Movies. Awesome picture of the Count there on the front. Very eye-catching with that red cover. And this looks like a fun one to go through as well. Lots and lots of pictures with a bit of text to back it up. King Kong there. And yeah, a mix of colour and black and white photos. And yeah, certainly one that I would find very interesting. So yeah, nice to see this one again. And then last up, the last one that I found is a book on Ray Harryhausen. Another big, massive, hefty book. This is called An Animated Life, and this is very, very detailed. It looks at him and his creations, behind the scenes of the movies that he worked on, some of the makings of those movies, how he did the creatures and the stop motion effects. Lots and lots of information in this one to go at. So if you're a fan of Ray Harryhausen and his work, this is definitely a must-own. So those are all the books that I found, guys. Let me know what you think of them. Do you own any of these? Have you read any of them? I'd be really interested to know. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.